on to business. So I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and it was in respect to, well, we were talking about Persona 5 Royal, which was the last game I was live streaming like crazy on YouTube. So you go on YouTube, look up Ron Guns. All my playlists is there. And the thing was, now looking back at the game, especially after I finished it twice. The first time I played it, it was just the whole first. Initially, obviously, I ran through it. Playing it initially in safe mode, like a punk, mainly because I wanted to like max out, the levels and just run it that way. When I go into New Game Plus mode, get a little more serious with it. But it was also to get most of the trophies. However, given that I have beaten the original Persona 5 twice, and now beaten Persona 5 Royal two more times, I ended up sitting down doing a little more analysis as far as characterization. I kind of had to look back, stand back, and not just see the game as a work of art or as a work of entertainment, but also from a kind of like an author perspective, right? So I sat down. I remember I was messaging somebody on my Facebook inbox, and I was talking about how I was going to sit down doing context analysis of the different arcanas and their meanings on each character. Because one of the things I noticed a lot of times, every time you go on YouTube and people talk about the characters and stuff, everything's surface level. I'm not a fan of that. I like to dive in, get a little more beyond the surface. You know what I mean? So, just for full disclosure, I do not dabble with tarot cards. I know people that do. I'm not one of them. It just so happens that in the game, a lot of social links are based on each of the arcanas, that you normally would see in tarot cards. And of course, there's sometimes a little bit of zodiac stuff involved in there somehow. But anyway, the whole purpose is really about the symbolism of the arcana in the context of the game itself, and also the reflection of it upon the characters that they entail. Of course, the biggest one I've written notes about so far is with our protagonist, Red Amamiya, as he is known in Persona 5, the animation, and Igor, or at least who we thought was Igor, for those of you that, have actually played the game or actually watched gameplay. Igor is usually the initial guy of the protagonist in the Persona franchise. So from the Shin Megami Tensei line. So since Revelations Persona, Persona 2, Persona 3, FES, Persona 4 Golden, and Arena Ultimax, and then you got Persona 5 Royal. Igor is always the guy that first shows up, basically sign up a contract with them for no freaking reason. And usually the purpose is to start the journey, and he helps you with unearthing all your abilities, so to speak. So it's inevitable, of course, and the context of this game, the first arcana pops up is Arcana number 0, the Fool. Like this, the Fool. So, which usually represents new beginnings, start of a journey. And then Ren, of course, this is the first thing that pops up. Now, let it be known, anyone that possesses the Fool card in the Persona series is known to be able to use more than one persona or more than one stand. For those of you who are JoJo Bizarre Adventure fans, the essence is the same. Usually in Jungian psychology or Jungian theory by Carl Jung, usually the persona is the mask that you wear, or at least the personality that the public perceives you to be. And what you put on in public may not be the same thing that's actually going on behind the scenes. Kind of like, best example, The Undertaker, who just recently retired in wrestling. The Undertaker is a persona, but the real individual is Mark Calloway. Point blank period. Nothing else to explain there. Now, in here, the way this all begins for Ren is due to a probation placed as a result of a false accusation of assaulting a public official. He is transferred to another town away from his parents. So yeah, now granted, the game starts at what I would say the near climax point of the story itself. However, in Memento style fashion, for those of you guys that remember that Guy Pearce movie, which I remember, I believe it was directed by Christopher Nolan. Great film, by the way. The movie begins at the beginning of passing the climax point of the end of the story. In a similar fashion, Persona 5 Royal begins where you're trying to get the treasure, which is a suitcase, out of a palace, and then you think, and Joker thinks he's good to go, and what happens? Police surround him, they beat him up, cuff him. Turns out that one of his buddies sold him out, and then you have to, sign your confession, whatever, and then you flash back to the very beginning of how this buggery began. With that said, and what's up, Mina? With that said, so he pops up, and then he's like, well, shoot. Like, all he was doing, honestly, Ren was just walking down the street and suddenly sees Masayoshi Shido, which is the public official, who's all about making Japan great again. Harassing a female. Just so happened to be, a woman, I guess, and he was trying to get sexual advances on. And Ren's like, well, I'm not putting up with that. So he got in the middle of it. And it turns out Shido was drunk as hell and belligerent. And as a result, Ren doesn't touch him. But all of a sudden, Masayoshi Shido throws himself off. Somehow he bumped his forehead. Next thing you know, he cut himself open. Calls the cops. Cops literally believe this BS that he assaulted him. And his girlfriend, who he was harassing, said, yeah, he hit him. You got unjustly whacked with an attempted assault or attempted manslaughter, and then get transferred by parents. So the parents is like, man, we don't know how to deal with this. We're gonna have to transfer him to another school somewhere in Shibuya or Yongenjai or whatever. It's like, damn. Talk about a start to a journey. And then, of course, you go to sleep one day, and you wake up in the Velvet Room. And the Velvet Room in the Shin Megami Tensei series is usually an image of how the person possessing the Fool card perceives his life or the start of his journey. So, for example, in Persona 3, it's an elevator going upwards. In Persona 4, it's a limousine. Persona 5, it's a prison. And you're in a prison cell. Very strange. And so from what I'm seeing in my notes, yeah, he embarks not only on a journey of running against the grain of being labeled a criminal, which goes with the theme of rebellion in Persona 5 Royal. Granted, even the colors. For example, Persona 3, the main color was blue, which is usually dealing with loyalty, however also used with sadness, depression. Persona 4 ended up with yellow and gold, which usually symbolizes royalty, spirituality, happiness. But the thing is, you also have the element of the fog, so there's mystery. 5, it's about rebellion, but also a sense of justice and revolution. So, and of course, the whole picaresque themes. If you look at most of the characters, their persona use, all their characters are based off of characters that involve being either a gentleman thief or a femme fatale or some sort of Robin Hoodish type of character. Ends up, stealing from the rich, giving to the poor, or deceiving the corrupt in order to really give them what they deserve. My notes are a little funny. So yeah, there's a lot of tricks to this stuff, right? And but also in turn, because of the injustice that was done to Red Amamiya, it in turn makes this also a journey towards self-redemption. You're trying to redeem yourself. You're trying to clear your name. You're trying to prove that you're not this uh, Columbine type of character waiting to happen. Because when he's in the classroom, kids are whispering, saying, "Oh, what if he's a maniac that you piss him off? He might kill you or stab you or whatever." Know what I mean? And the narrative hinges on Joker proving he isn't a menace, but rather a productive and triumphant element amongst his peers. And you'll see that in the game where he's building confidants and social links with different characters from, you know, the textbook nerd, Makoto, to, the reclusive artist like Yusuke, to even the track running uh, reject Ryuji. Unfortunately, he's a reject, but it was only by a circumstance that he did not really ask for. All he did was stand up for himself and got screwed over in the process. To bonding with someone like An, who was someone who was implied to have been sexually harassed by the volleyball coach. And the list goes on, the type of people that Ren Amamiya would end up bonding with and getting to know in order for him to really build himself up with the purpose of proving that he's not this thing that he got slapped a criminal record for. But because of all the odds and all the buggery that would happen, it's a constant. He's constantly throughout this story pushing back, pushing back, pushing back, and then even when it looks like at the climax, he's finally gonna like just have things clear. Something always goes wrong. And to be honest, this is the one protagonist in the franchise history that I actually personally ended up connecting with because it's a lot of what I dealt with growing up and a lot of what I've been dealing with even as an adult. You know, busting my ass, trying to do things right, trying to go right by people, and still finding some sort of injustice happen to me or some sort of fuckery. There's no other word for it. That's the best way I can say it. Right? And then the full card is known as the Trump or Wild card due to Joker's ability to use more than one persona to combat shadows and monsters within the collective subconscious. In other words, a metaverse. Which was something that was very much alluded throughout the course of the Persona 4 Golden animation as well as the storyline. So if you ever sit down and watch that animated series and then you go into Persona 5 and Persona 5 Royal, it's not hard to see that there was a build up. There was a build up. It was so subtle, but it was there, especially since the theme of that subtlety was red and black. In the middle of a program or a game that involved a lot of yellow and a lot of smoke. Yeah, the collective subconscious. Again, another Carl Jung psychology thing, which the game really deep dives in a lot, and the metaverse is full of it. And the interesting part about that is the fact that the metaverse involves the collective subconscious of people in society, not just one person or another person. And it's not just Ren Amamiya's subconscious, but it's everyone in Shibuya, everyone in Tokyo. Um, it's like this one big palace of like because you would have the Phantom Thief requests from the fan site that would involve requests about, hey, can they go change this other guy's heart because this guy was harassing these two girls, or help change my mom's heart because I feel neglected. It could be someone as a child somehow sending the request via her neglectful mother's cell phone, things like that, and it really goes deep in with that. And then, of course, within this world, including the palaces in the game, which I will go into on a whole other series regarding this deep dive type thing. You got a lot of shadows, and of course, the game is rich in mythological creatures and deities. I'm talking like from Hinduism, Judeo-Christian Islam, to Satanism to some degree, to Norse mythology, slightly, to even some, even what was, even Buddhism and Hinduism. There's a little bit of that. Some Chinese and Japanese lore as well. So you have someone like Bishamunten to Messiah, which is a symbolism of the Judeo-Christian Messiah, Christ, to Horus, Set, to even Lucifer and Satan, Baphomet, Vishnu, and the list is really wild. Even Thor, Odin, Loki makes a nice little appearance in the game itself, although he's not someone you can obtain. He is working with you at some point, but again, don't want to spoil that part because that's not what this deep dive is about. And the Fool card is bestowed upon the character whose codename is Joker. Watch this now. Also, by the way, I'm not reading something from the internet. This is actually my own notes. Also, the name of the wild or trump card in traditional card games. For example, usually if the Joker card pops out when you're playing cards, whatever superior card there is or any card that's there, you throw that Joker card, it will cancel out that card altogether. It'll just, it's kind of like, for example, and the thing is, it will tap with anything. So if you have a King Diamond, guess what? Pull out the Joker, bam, cancel it out. You're tying it right there. Or if it's something like Eight of Hearts, or even Queen of Spades, or even the Ace of Spades, it'll tie it up every time. Like, you can't go, like, the Joker just blocks out whatever that thing is. So if all of a sudden it looks like you're gonna, in the middle of a card game, it looks like you're a little behind, you're trying to tie the game, that card will do it. It just simply will. It will give you that advantage. And of course, with Red Amamiya as Joker, he's able to use more than one persona. So in other words, for example, Ryuji, he has Captain Kidd, but that's the only one he got. Atakamaki has Carmen. Morgana has Zoro. Johanna is a persona of Makoto. Yusuke has Goemon. Akechi has Robin Hood. There's a little more to that, but I don't want to ruin it right now. You got Kasumi or Sumire, who has Cinderella. So again, she's the only exception to the whole, picaresque element. She's the only one. So, but Joker, he's got more than one. And then let's also add that his initial persona, his name is Arsène, as in Arsène Lupin, who is known to be a gentleman thief in novels written in France by Maurice Leblanc. And the thing was, his character is written in a way that he rivals Sherlock Holmes. As a matter of fact, in literature, he was at one point rivaling Sherlock Holmes. And of course, Maurice LeBlanc, just so he wouldn't get sued, you know, Sherlock Holmes. Which is also revealed in the game, which, again, there's a lot of fun trivia and fun educational knowledge that pops up in the game. Because guess what? You're playing a 10th grader, essentially. So, Arsène has always been the rival of Sherlock Holmes. He's known to be a gentleman thief. If you don't really understand that type of character, just think of Carmen Sandiego. And right there, playing some, and of course, color theme, red and black. With a little bit of white in there, you know, just like a newspaper, you know, it was black and white, red all over, newspaper. And then the thing there, also, Joker's always a wild card. It's the card that you don't expect. Like, you know it exists, and that at some point will pop up. You just don't know when it's coming and when it's going to hit you out of nowhere. And who else is a crazy character like that? The Joker from Batman. You know, he's a guy that doesn't really entirely plan things out. He just does stuff, just like Heath Ledger's Joker would portray. Although, granted, all the type of crap the Joker did in the comics, there's no way he just simply winged it. There's stuff he planned. It just so happened that he probably just thought as he went, and he just processed a thought type of thing. You know, it's like, I'm going to A to B. I don't know what the hell I'm doing in between, but I'm going to figure it out. We're going to fuck around and find out. And of course, somehow would end up elaborating into this grand, wild scheme out of nowhere. And that's the purpose of the full card when it comes to Red Amamiya story. Because eventually, his purpose is that, one, he does redeem himself, and two, he ends up helping others in their collective subconscious parts of the world. To therefore eventually help reform society to some degree, even if it's on a local level, it's just Shibuya and Tokyo. Trust me, the game doesn't go beyond Tokyo. It doesn't go to North America or anything like that. Well, except Hawaii, but I'm not going to go there. And then it's bestowed upon the character whose codename is Joker in a wild trump card in traditional card games. Oddly enough, associated with Aquarius due to hope, ambition, and adventure. That was also a weird thing too, because usually the term of the Fool, or the calling card of the Fool, is usually associated with Aries, which is the planet Mars. Because Aries is usually like in the zodiac, you know, if Pisces is usually the old dying man at the end of the journey, and Aries is like the baby, the newborn, the beginning of all the 12. So it only makes sense that, you know, the beginning of all the cards in the journey in context is the Fool. Therefore, Aries actually makes the most sense in that regard. And it's usually assumed to be the most foolish because we're usually at square one. We jump the gun. We tend to act without thinking and then wondering how things sometimes go mad left. So therefore, it makes more sense when pinpointing the zodiac aspect. The Fool is usually like pinpoint. But we'll go into that in another Arcana aspect. Given the themes underlined with Red Amamiya and Persona 5 Royal, especially Rebellion, Aries is the fitting sign. That's another thing. Out of all the zodiac signs, which one is the one perceived as the rebel? Aries. He's the cardinal sign, the one that likes to start shit and then wonder why things go crazy. And unless he has someone that's more fixed, like a Leo, to help lead the charge, he or she's gonna fall apart. Yeah, that type of thing. Then, also, sends a gentleman, trickster, thief who would fool his way with treasure and rival Sherlock Holmes. Yeah, so that's another thing. If you decide to look up any stories of Arsène Lupin, or if you decide to just, out of pure amusement, look into Carmen Sandiego, or even Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, the animated series, or even the one that's currently on Netflix, kind of person that you're stealing from people, you're sneaking your way out, and you somehow get away with it. Even when you think you got them, slip through your fingers, and then it's like to be continued, and it's like a never-ending show. And then Here's another Aries trait. Usually within the zodiac, the term for Aries is I am. You know, who am I? Or I am this person, or I am that person. And Red Amamiya, in this story Persona 5 Royal, as a fool, beginning his journey, it is the pursuit of defining who he is versus who everyone else has painted him out to be. And the whole journey is him busting his ass to prove, hey, this is who I am. You're not going to tell me who I am. That is not who I am. I am not this XYZ, filth of society that you're trying to paint me out as. I ain't this Columbine waiting to happen kind of person. This is who I actually am. And that is his journey throughout the entirety of the game. And then you also have the ultimate persona, which is usually unlocked by having the world card, which is the final. However, there's a reason I bring this up, is Satanael, which in Gnosticism is known to be Lucifer's form before he's cast out from heaven and becomes Satan. And of course, knowing that he rebelled against God and his ass like a fool, cast down all the way down into earth from the heavens. Well, and he also fooled a third of the angels. He managed to get a third of the angels in heaven to rebel against God also. So again, the rebellion thing, the fool's errand of trying to take God's throne, very fitting for Ren to be, it's fitting how towards his journey when fighting Yaldabaoth, he ends up with Satanael popping out of nowhere. So again, that's what I can touch upon with this. And Igor, again, the franchise has always been the initial guide. Be like, hey, so this is your journey, this is your mission. I'm here to guide you with all the tools you're gonna need to accomplish what goes on beyond the physical realm, but rather in this subconscious, psychological, spiritual realm. And if you really think about it, when it comes to the spiritual and the mental, there's a lot that gets mixed together. A lot of times, growing up back home, there's always, the spirit and the heart. And I'm like, no, it's the mind. It starts here. Everything starts here. And then trickles its way down here. It's the only trickle down theory I've ever thought of that makes sense. And that in execution does pan out. You start here, you work your way here, then once it transfers over into the heart, things make more sense. But when the thoughts that come to attack you are not reduced into submission under your will, that's when a lot of cognitive distortion results into a lot of emotional illness to a certain degree. Of course, there are always some things that you can't control, and sometimes, despite how well you can eventually figure it out in your head, sometimes, emotionally, as much as you try to put logic into some things, your emotions try to hit you harder. And that's granted. But, that's usually where you start the journey. The mind. That's where it begins. And then, well, for this live, this is it for now. Again, those tuning in, my name is Ron Guns. And, well, I just gave you Persona 5 Royal, the first Arcana context analysis on the Fool card involving the protagonist, Red Amamiya, and Igor. So, until next time.